Hello and welcome to another Perusia podcast. I am Charbel Raish, your host, and very excited to be introducing to you a very strong man of faith. He's none other than Doug Barry, the founder of BR Coalition, and he's got quite a career so far, and we're going to learn more about his faith journey, his career, and then also this latest website and apostolate, BR Coalition. He joins me live from Texas in the United States, and let's talk to him right now. Hello, Doug. How you doing?
Good, Charbel. How you doing? Good to be with you.
Really well, thank God. Thanks for joining us from the United States. Here we are on the other side of the world, with similar problems.
Yeah, I hate to say it's worldwide what's going on, the stuff we're dealing with, but it's it's only ramping up, and you can't hide your head in the sand anymore. Everybody, you got to wake up to what's happening.
That's what's been impressive about you. You haven't stopped fighting the battle. You've always been about the battle and giving people the tools about it. And can we talk about just a bit about yourself? It is your first time on our podcast. We first met, by the way, in Australia. I remember it was in Brisbane. It was a door conference, and you were selling T-shirts, Radix T-shirts, and I bought that. I still have that today. I think that was way back in 2005,
Wow.
Something like that. 2005 or 6, somewhere around that time. And I remember meeting you then. And we're coming up. What's that? 17 years or something like that.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah. It's amazing.
How many trips have you been to Australia? You've been at least twice.
Yeah, I think 3. If I remember right,
okay.
3. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I've been down there 3 times. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, tell us a bit about yourself. Like when you did come to Australia, you were giving talks to the young people. You were doing like a passion play where you were acting as most of the key characters within the passion scenes. That was quite and not only entertaining, very moving as well. And then you also you had different resources that you did. You came to Australia and you were giving. Was there anything else I've missed? Was there anything else you did while you were here?
No, I mean, when we were down there, we did the door conferences. We have been, we've done everything over the years. 33 years is how long I've been actually traveling, speaking around the country, outside the country, internationally. Worked with EWTN off and on for many, many years. Co-hosted Life on the Rock. You were a guest on there one time. And so, I've been all over the place. I've done the one-man drama of the Passion. It's about 10 to 12 different characters that I would act out one after the other, all kind of intermixed. And then a good friend of mine, Eric Jennis, an amazing musician, was the music behind it. And he would play the music, and we'd shut the lights off normally in the church or the hall, wherever we were. And it lasted about an hour, 15 to hour and a half long. And it was very, very much a meditation, but dramatically done. And we did that for a long time. We did that all over the place for a long time, all over different parts of the world. And that was a real blessing because it was really the type of event that tried to call people to conversion. And it wasn't just about entertaining. You want people to have a good experience, but you want them to have a spiritually moving experience too. So we did that, telling the stories of the dreams of Don Bosco, another dramatic event, a lot of just general speaking on everything from the commandments to the reality of hell to the Beatitudes. And then a little bit over time, it started to get into things like even understanding the importance of protection, self-defense, and so forth, which is a very interesting subject to bring up in Christian circles of evangelization, because people just have this attitude, well, we're just going to trust Jesus and he'll take care of us. And yet we have both a right and responsibility, as the Catechism states, to be able to protect and defend not just ourselves, but others that God has entrusted to our care. It's actually a grave duty, as paragraph 2265 states in the Catechism. And so that was something that I would talk about off and on over the years, and eventually over time realized that a lot of people just were not in tune with that. And that was one of the reasons BR Coalition kind of grew from that. I've used the term battle ready a lot over the years and still do at times, but there's a real strange thing happening in the world right now. And so even our terminology, as can be deemed very dangerous. And so we have to be careful And in some cases, that's fine. Let's do that. Like, I'm never going to steer clear of talking about the Eucharist or confession or the Blessed Mother, the love of God, being a Catholic. That's all never going to change. But we changed the term battle ready to be ready because we wanted to make it, put it in a position where people could embrace it and they could understand what we're talking about. I know we're going to break some of that down in this podcast, what it is to be ready and where there's a duty and a responsibility and what steps we can take. But yeah, that's it like 33 years of traveling and speaking. And I still talk about Marian apparitions, the church approved ones, and just the beauty of the Blessed Mother calling us to deeper prayer life, dialogue with God, and the need to be open to the Holy Spirit's inspirations and then act upon them and cooperate with grace. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, I can't wait to unpack all this. I have to let you know, while I've got this opportunity, I say this a lot. I've been teaching religion for quite a while and then giving talks now with Perusia. And there's a line you said in your talk, and we're going back, again, 17 or 18 years. But it was a very profound point you made in your talk. I still use it today. And you don't know what I'm about to say, but you would challenge people. Jesus, people say, how do I get to heaven? He says, keep the commandments, love God with all your mind, heart, soul, and keep the commandments. Right. And then you did this very clever thing where you would interview people. Do you know the 10 Commandments? And you'd find not many of them would know the 10 Commandments. And some of them would think, I know them, but not in order. And you think, no, you need to know them in order. And it was a good challenge because it's challenged me. And now I teach my children the 10 Commandments now in order as 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and they've got to memorize it. Good. And you'll be amazed. People can get it. Little kids can get it. Yeah. And your point was, how on earth can we keep the commandments if we don't know them? Right. How profound is that?
Yeah.
We don't know them.
And I would offer money all the time around the country. I would say, I'll give you $20, or, if you can recite the 10 Commandments for me in 60 seconds, or 30 seconds, and people would, oh, that's just too fast. It's like, well, but if you're tempted by sin, you need to know what the commandment is right away. You can't have to go back and look something up. So, but you're right. We can't keep those laws and truths of God that we don't know. So it's nice to know that something like that, has helped, somewhere along the way. So that's awesome to hear.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, let's dive in a bit about yourself. Were you born a cradle Catholic? Were you always on fire like you are now with your faith? I'd like just to get to know a little bit about your upbringing and how you got to this point where you are today.
Yeah, I'm one of these Catholics that does not have an amazing conversion story. Born, raised Catholic. I've probably missed Sunday Mass in my life 7 times only for being sick. So I was one of those go to Mass every Sunday and Holy Day of Obligation because you needed to. But I would refer to myself as a clock in, clock out Catholic. You walk into church, you put your hand in the holy water font, and you clock in. You walk out after Mass and you clock out. And that was the extent of my faith. And it wasn't until I was probably 19, 20 years old when I heard about the Blessed Mother in apparitions that she would appear in various places of the world. Now, I had remembered bits and pieces growing up, but I wasn't familiar. I knew of Fatima, but I didn't know what really happened. Guadalupe, but I didn't really happen. And my aunt, God rest her soul, kind of introduced me to the talk of potential modern day apparitions going on. And so I went and talked to her about it. And she said, you've always got to follow the church's lead on this, though. If they investigate it and find it valid, then embrace. But if not, stay away from it. And I said, well, where do you think I should start? And she said, Fatima. So I started to read up on Our Lady of Fatima in 1917, and everything changed. It was like getting hit in the head with a 2x4, sugar-coated, by the Blessed Mother herself, and it woke me up. The vision of hell that the children had on July 13th, 1917, the prophecy of a second world war that would come if man did not stop offending God, and that was the reason.
Forget about that. It's a good point.
If you don't stop offending God, you will see a second war much worse than this one, which World War I was coming to the end of the following year, 1918. So that woke me up. That the Blessed Mother would come to the earth, that her son would send her, and that she would come to the earth and she would warn us of things like war. And it just really, really, really rattled me. And so I started to look into it more, and that really changed the way I looked at things such as the rosary. And I don't don't go anywhere without a rosary. There's one on my desk here. There's one by my bed. There's a couple in my car. I mean, I don't go anywhere without one in my pocket wherever I go. The brown scapular as well. Devotion to Mary is key, is critical, but I wasn't this way growing up. I was a lukewarm, clock in, clock out Catholic. And only because of the Blessed Mother's, experience of those apparitions that I started to look into did anything really wake up inside. And I always say you get close to Mary and it's an ongoing journey. All right. We're all sinners and we need God's mercy and we can grow, but the love of God and the love of Our Lady are beyond our understanding. And the more you cling to her, and I will say this right up front, whether you're struggling with things, whether you feel like you got things on target, on track, cling to her. When you're at your lowest points and you're in sin or sadness, sorrow, depression, no matter what it is, see the need to cling to her and do it. She will constantly reel you in and pull you in closer to her heart. So that's what happened to me. So it was the mother that brought me to her son. Yeah.
Wow. So were you going to Sunday Mass? Were you doing other devotionals at all before that time, or just Sunday Mass?
It was basically go to Mass, make sure you get to confession once a year, according to church rule, follow your basic Lenten practices. When you're fasting or abstaining from meat, it's, you follow what the rules are. But it wasn't heartfelt. Like there was no relationship really there. It was just checking boxes and clocking in and clocking out for the most part. Yeah.
How did then things change for you? Your prayer life, the way you lived your life? Tell us about that after now you discovered Our Lady. How did that, what does that look like? What did that look like at the time? Your transformation, I guess, or your challenge to go up a notch in your faith. What was it like for you?
Yeah, it's funny when you read the lives of the saints, and I recommend anybody if you find a saint, you start to read. And there's so many saints out there. You find certain ones that relate to your personality or not, And I would read. I came upon Saint John of the Cross, and he, a mystic, lived in the 1500s. Good friends with Saint Teresa of Avila, both mystics, contemplatives. And I would read, this was a tough guy. I mean, he was meaning strong. He was mentally tough. His fasting and mortification was extreme. And I saw a challenge there, and that helped. But when he wrote about dark night of the soul and dark night of the senses, that we go through these moments where you find where you're soaring high, you're on fire for the faith, and then God strips away the consolation. And so this explains what I was going through. Hearing about Our Lady of Fatima, looking into more of what the rosary meant, instead of saying the rosary once in a while at a funeral or, now and then before Mass, when everybody's praying it, you kind of chime in a little bit. Now I began to pray it on my own and, with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, daily. And it began to grow to become a daily practice. And over time, that just starts to seep in. But you go through these dark nights, or maybe not so much dark, let's just call it moments of consolation, and then moments where God kind of pulls that back really to test you. And I always liken it to weightlifting. I'm 58 and I've been working out since I was 12 years old. So I've been lifting weights off and on my whole life. You don't retain muscle mass. And I don't mean like some big jacked up guy. I mean, you don't retain quality, healthy muscle or solid, healthy bone without resistance. This is medically proven. You have cells in your bones called osteoblasts and osteoclasts. The osteoclasts want to constantly reabsorb the bone, tear it down. Osteoblasts build it back up. Osteoblast cells, by God's design, work better when there's some sort of push-pull resistance. So not just walking or, playing tennis, that helps a little. But when you're doing resistance work, whether it's weights or bands, exercise bands, the reason I say this is the soul is really in many ways the same. There has to be some sort of resistance. So God allows us these spiritual resistance moments. And that was what it was like. I was soaring high where I was on fire and I was just wanting to eat up more of the faith. And then there were times when I was like, oh, I feel empty and lost. And then God brings in a little something to strengthen that. And it was back and forth, and it still is. It still is. He never stops doing this. There's that moment where you pray and you're saying, Lord, are you there? Where are you? I've been praying that for, 40 whatever years, 30 some years now. I mean, you just go back and forth, consolation, and then removing the consolation to strengthen us. It's the push-pull resistance, I think, that a lot of us go through. Now, Teresa of Avila, in her 7 mansions that she wrote about prayer, said that many people won't get past the 4th or so mansion. I think she says 3rd or 4th mansion, to get to the 7th mansion, which is this unbelievable union with God. But most people around 3rd or 4th mansion start to falter because God starts to really pull back consolation and really test your perseverance. And at that moment, a lot of people revert back to the ways of the world because it's more comfortable. I mean, face it, it's easy for us to go down the path of least resistance. But now when you start facing interior challenges, and then you've got to make certain decisions based on what you know is right, not what the push of the trend is out there, making you, the crowd is going this way or that way. Now we got to be thinking about governments and certain individuals who start putting restrictions on you as a Christian for talking too much in ways that sound like hate speech, like we're dealing with here in the States and other parts of the world. Then you start finding that you really tested to whether or not you're going to stand for your faith. So from the beginning to where I am now, Charbel, it's been really a constant seasons of consolation from God. And then I would say, I feel like he unplugs you and you're just kind of like, okay, where am I? And Therese, I should say, Saint Therese, the little flower, would talk about how she felt like the child Jesus would be, she's like a toy, and he's, the child is playing with the toy. And when he's done with the toy, he puts the toy on the shelf for a while. And that's what she felt like at times. Like he was just he's done for now. And then you just got to just kind of wait, when is God going to hit me again? Teresa of Avila could compare it to a boat on the water. And there were times the dryness was so long. And then the Holy Spirit would come like a wave of water that would pick up the boat and carry it for a while and then set it down again, and the wave goes on. And just that moment was enough to keep her going. Mother Teresa talks about the dryness. You pray and she would feel like prayers coming back to her heart like daggers. So it just goes with the territory that God constantly brings us through those moments of the cross, of the agony in the garden. And it varies from person to person, time to time in your life, chapter to chapter. And that's what it's been like for me since this all, really woke me up with Our Lady of Fatima 5 years ago.
Wow. What was it? Because when did you start going then public, I guess, in ministry and having an apostolate? How long was it before you then started to share your faith publicly and sort of formalize it in a way where you organized the ministry and made it part of your career?
All of that was I would say accidental, but it's more that it was providential, the way God does these things. And a lot of people go through this. I mean, when I was on Life on the Rock for 8 years, we interviewed, like yourself, we interviewed you, and we interviewed a lot of people, who came through, who went through very similar stories, meaning that you don't plan certain things. You can try, and sometimes God blesses those plans, and then sometimes God has a whole different direction, a different door, a different somebody that's going to step into your life and redirect what you're thinking. And that makes it exciting and very nerve-wracking. Because on one hand, you're like, oh, God can do something amazing. Like when he touched David, and pretty soon David kills Goliath, and he's blessed to be this king now. He's initiated as a king, and it just, what a change. But that excitement can also be tempered by the fact that God will really test you in those ways, because he wants to know that you're trusting him entirely. Like when he deals with Gideon and he reduces the army down to 300. And he basically, in so many words in scripture, says to Gideon, you must never think that you're doing this on your own. You have to know that it's from me. So I'm going to reduce the army to 300 men. It started at like 33,000 or so, reduced to 300. And God was making it clear to Gideon, this is me doing this through you. You play your part, you do, but I'm the one who's orchestrating it. So for me, my mom had invited me right around that time of I learned of Fatima to help out with her Wednesday night CCD, or religious ed for kids class. And she wanted me to sit in the hallways and go over prayers with the kids individually to help them know the Our Father, the Hail Mary, and so forth. And then I started to tell stories of saints' lives. And then from there, she'd asked me to do this. And then eventually someone in the CCD coordinator asked me to lead the class of the 7th and 8th graders combined. And it was mainly because most of these religious teachers are women, and these 7th and 8th grade boys were a little more, challenging because they're young men, and they wanted a man to actually teach the boys. So I said, sure. And then from there, eventually I get asked to run the high school youth group at the parish. So my wife and I, right after we got married, started to run the high school youth group. And then from there, someone said, hey, would you come and speak in my classroom at the school? And then I did that. And then I got a job at a Catholic school as a maintenance man. I was the repair guy. And then I asked the priest, can I talk in the classroom? Sure, why not? And then another school asked me because they heard about it. Then I was invited to a conference in another state in Kansas. And then from that conference, other people had come from other parts of the country. And then I got invited here and there and there and there and there. And it was word of mouth over all of those years. And I've been to every state in America except one or two, I think now. Idaho, I think, is the only one I haven't spoken in. Maybe Connecticut. But the whole point is word of mouth, little by little, doors opened. I didn't plan hardly any of it, but it got so busy that I eventually quit my job and started collect donations. And then I would get a stipend when I would go travel and speak. And I still do that today. I still travel and speak. And, it's been 30, going on 33, almost 34 years now.
Wow. Praise God. And you've been you raised a family. How many children? You have a few children yourself? Five children. Praise God.
Yeah, I raised 5 kids. They're all out of the house. I now have multiple grandchildren. So,
okay.
3 of my children have gotten married, and I have grandkids now. So, yeah, and we're still going. I mean, we have BR Coalition. People can check that out, brcoalition.com. We have that, but I still travel and speak, do parish missions, conferences at times. So, yeah, still doing it.
Okay, fantastic. I do remember with Perusia, our first partner, and that's what sort of the birth of Perusia was. St. Joseph Communications was our first a partner, if you like, and we remember the DVD from Radix, and that was your play, the Passion Play.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness! 18 years ago. So, and I remember. I don't know what's happened to that. If that's still out there, but can people still see that performance or what you did so many years ago? Is that online anywhere?
It is. Yeah, it's actually a person can just go to YouTube and and we didn't do this, but someone uploaded the entire presentation on there, and so we used to sell it. We had DVDs and videos. Videos faded out, of course, so we had DVDs and now it's hard to sell that anymore because you can just get everything online. So there are people someone uploaded it, so we let it stay out there. So they can, if they just have to look up The Passion with Doug Barry or The Passion with Radix, Radix, they can find there's 2 or 3 different versions that people have posted out there of it.
Wow. Now tell us, I do remember, Life on the Rock, what was the time like at EWTN? And they're another major partner of ours, and it was wonderful to see you then, 9 years ago now. But what was the time like there, and any sort of highlights for you during that time?
Oh, yeah. It was great. EWTN is a great setup. Like anybody else, they got their struggles, their challenges, but they are doing amazing work. And I had a just wonderful time there. We still have some programs, I think they still air, called Battle Ready. It's a TV show that eventually, after Life on the Rock, after 8 years, they came to me and said, how would you like to do your own show? I said, sure. It's a great blessing, Battle Ready. And so my son and I produced it. We did 25 episodes, I think. We haven't done any for a while, but they were running them still. I don't know if they're still running them, but they have those now. They ran the Passion Meditation for many years, 15 or so plus years. And I would say one of the great, in general, just being there regularly was just a great connection. And Father Mark Mary became a very good friend of mine. We co-hosted on Life on the Rock with me.
Yes.
He was pretty much in charge. I was his right hand there. But one of the greatest experiences was before I even did anything at EWTN. I had been on a couple of shows for other people, Jonette Bankovic and Donna, her name, Irish singer. She's no longer doing work with them, but I'd done those shows. And then one day I was at a conference in California and I was going to do the Passion Meditation, a good sized conference, probably 3,000 or 4,000 people. Mother Angelica was one of the speakers at the conference. So before the conference, I got a chance to meet her, and it was my first time meeting her. I had a picture with her back in 1993 or 94. She didn't remember. So I meet her at the conference, and I asked her if she'd watched The Passion, and she did. She sat in the front row. After The Passion was over, I jumped off the stage, and I ran over to say goodbye to her. She was going out the back room. And we always end The Passion with some sort of prayer, meditation, veneration of a crucifix, music. Oftentimes confessions would be heard afterwards, get priests ready to go. So she's leaving and I run over and I said, Mother, I just wanted to thank you for being here. And she turned to me and she said, that needs to be on TV, honey. You're going to get a call. And I got a call a few days later and they invited me and my friend to go down there and we recorded it there at the network. And,
Wow.
and then they had aired it every Holy Week for, like I said, 15, 18 years. Just recently, I think they've stopped doing it. But while I was there, I had a private meeting with her for about a half hour. And when I was talking with her, we were talking about the world events and everything going on. And she said one thing that really stood out. She said, Doug, everything is so far gone now in the world. And this was about 20 or so years ago, give or take, maybe. She said, the only thing that's going to turn things around now in this world is divine intervention. So you get ready because it's coming and fight hard from wherever you are. So she could see, as a lot of people could, that there are so many things that are disordered right now and out of place. This was 20 years ago or so. So she said, divine intervention. And divine intervention, we're talking about something as the Marian apparitions prophesy on the scale of a World War III. I mean, that's been prophesied by the Blessed Mother. Or as she said in Akita, Japan in 1973, fire would fall from the sky and a great portion of the world would be annihilated. So this is what we're talking about, divine intervention, stuff we can't even understand how bad it could be, but necessary for salvation. And that's the tough thing to wrestle with. But so yeah, EWTN, great time down there. Mother Angelica, meeting her and having the private meeting with her was probably one of the biggest highlights. Yeah, and then of course, when you came, that was a great part of it too.
Well said. I was there with Kevin Bailey. Yeah, it was great. Wow, Mother Angelica, we pray and ask for intercession now, right? She's now. I mean, we never know. Someone's, but is there any talk about what's happening these days? It's been 8 years now since she passed.
I mean, they're always trying to push for someone like that, a case like hers. And, someone told me once that one of the reasons that it was a priest, he said, you have to understand that one of the reasons we don't find very many lay people that are saints, and you find it from religious orders, is because the religious orders have money enough to have the case for sainthood investigated, because you have a lot of time and energy and money that goes into investigating whether or not a person lived that degree of a virtuous life.
Yeah.
And so, no one's they're never going to canonize me unless I die a martyr, because there's just not enough money in my family to have my life investigated. And they would probably look at it and say, it's not even worth investigating. Okay, let's not even start this investigation. But someone like Mother Angelica, there's enough resources, I think, there from people who loved her and supported her that I would not be surprised if her case is being investigated or if they're trying to move that direction. But I have not heard anything official on that. No.
Okay. Wow. Now, tell us about now. So BR Coalition, there's a website. Yeah. What is BR Coalition, and could you unpack that for us?
BR Coalition, this is something that we started. BR stands for Be Ready. Formerly Battle Ready. And again, we changed it for two reasons. One, you got to be clever in the world we're in right now. And there are forces out there that are very anti-God, and they'll look for Christian organizations and they'll try to take them down. And so we want to be clever. And in general, we want people to be ready for the battle. And Be Ready Coalition is a term that really hopefully can relate to anybody. And the idea behind it in general is there are three main areas: physically, mentally, and spiritually. And what I mean by physically is when you have catastrophes, natural disasters, we have a responsibility to be naturally ready to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, shelter the homeless, give drink to the thirsty, the corporal works of mercy. So we have a responsibility to do that anyway. But being ready for even more serious situations, whether it's, food chain disruption like we've had due to, the medical emergency that devastated the world for 3 years. Some of it legitimate, some of it not legitimate, but we saw a lot of manipulation, a lot of problems, and a lot of supply chain issues. So being ready to have things like food and water, also shelter. Okay, you get a tornado, an earthquake, and here where I am in the states here in Texas, just to the north and east of us in the last couple of weeks, I think some 40 people have died due to tornadoes. Okay. So when a storm hits, a flood, a tornado, whatever it might be, an earthquake, look what happened in Turkey, Syria, 40 some thousand, I think, plus died. We have a responsibility to provide shelter. We also have a responsibility to provide medical care for people. Okay. This is all in the physical part of things. People are hurt. You want to have medical care for them. You want to make sure they have access to good doctors, good medicine, and so forth. But then also defense, protection. Just honestly think about it. You have a family. If you have a wife and children, you want to care for your wife and kids. And if someone breaks into your home or in a parking lot, tries to assault you, you want to be able to defend and protect. That doesn't mean just using firearms. I know that's a touchier thing down there than it is up here, but they're trying to take them away up here. And then if a bad guy's got a firearm and he's coming at me and all I have is my hands to fight off a guy with a gun, okay, that creates a problem. I have to know what I'm doing. So learning how to defend and protect. And if I'm walking through a parking lot and someone's screaming for help, maybe a woman's being mugged, robbed, sexually assaulted, and they're screaming for help, do I have a responsibility to go over and try to protect her, try to help her? Or do I just go over and say, I'm going to pray for you, ma'am, and hope that God takes care of you? Maybe the police will show up in time, which is really unrealistic because by the time the police even get the call and start heading that way, the bad guy or girl has done what they're going to do normally. So the idea of Be Ready Coalition physically is how do we help people naturally be prepared with food, water, medical care, shelter, and even defense, those 5 categories. We talk about body, mind, and soul. That's body. The mind. How do we prepare the mind? A lot of people are mentally and emotionally soft. They don't have a toughness about them. They can't handle hard work, some of them. I mean, face it, even now, trying to get people back in the workforce here in the United States, I don't know what it's like down there for you, but after this medical emergency, oh boy, I tell you, people just don't want to work anymore because the government is giving them handouts. And if someone gives you everything you think you need, that's not going to make you want to go work for what you need. So people are mentally getting soft. We're soft in many ways when it comes to knowing our faith. We're soft emotionally. People get easily offended with a word. You say the wrong word and people are all bent out of shape because how dare you offend me by saying something that I don't like, how you said it or what word you used. So we need strength mentally, emotionally as well. And then the third is spiritual. Be Ready Coalition helps people be spiritually stronger and trained up to be able to handle tough things. We do video online training, and we're going to be, we encourage people to go to our website, brcoalition.com. And we have an emergency preparedness course that they can buy one time. We have a new version, updated version coming out April 25th. BREP is what we call it, Battle Ready Emergency Preparedness Course, or Be Ready Emergency Preparedness Course. The BREP course helps you understand the 5 things: food, water, shelter, medical, and defense. And we want people really to take the steps to be better prepared. That course they can buy helps them do that. It's all online. And then we have a monthly online training, coaching type of course that addresses body, mind, and soul. How do we train up and get stronger? The video that's coming out in April is about training for how do you handle a fall when you fall into sin. A lot of people get really, really they really struggle with sin. Some, it's obstinate and they don't care. And then some become so scrupulous, they just don't think God can forgive them and beat themselves up over it. Going to confession sometimes becomes a clock in, clock out, check the box sort of thing, rather than a deep spiritual experience with God that has a deep dialogue to it. So we try to coach and train that as well. So that's kind of a synopsis of what the two main things that we do: the emergency course and then the online training.
Yeah, wow, fantastic. I haven't heard anything else like this out there, especially in the Catholic space. So let's talk about how do you do this? So you got what's the course look like? Is it just a series of videos online? Is there a workbook? What can someone expect in this course?
Right. If you buy the emergency course BREP, you're going to get you'll get an account set up on our platform. It's called Teachable. On that platform, once you have the account, you can go in. There are over 4 hours of video and more constantly being added. Okay. There are 10 or 11 workbooks now. All of them are downloadable and printable. So you can print them off. Some people make them into little binders. They put them in binders and make little booklets out of them. And some people just do it all online. It's optional. You can do either one. You can go to whichever video at whatever time you want. You can go whatever workbook you want. So you can work at your pace. Now, we have a recommendation of a way to proceed through all of those pieces, but people can pick it at their own pace. Some people say, I did the entire course. We used it as homeschooling for our kids. We're all ready to go. And then some say, yeah, I've done about 10% of it and I'm taking my time. And either is really fine. Okay. So there's no classroom type of thing. There's no accountability where you have to be at a certain place in the course by a certain time. It's all at your own leisure. Now, what we do offer in addition to that is 2 times a month, I do a live event, a live webinar type event. And anybody who has the course or who chooses to enroll in the online coaching training monthly program that we have, they can come to this live event and they're in the chat box and they're talking to each other and they're asking questions and I'm answering. They email questions. I answer the emails. Online, the questions, and we address everything you can imagine. They've asked questions about 3 days of darkness and the illumination of conscience, and they've asked about how do I store more water, and everything in between. So it's very, very interactive, but it allows people, once you buy the course, you have lifetime access to these live events twice a month to ask questions or just listen, gain information from other people. And then in the Teachable platform, it's like Facebook, but it's better because it's not censored at all. Mm-hmm. And it's called Circle Community. So people get to interact with each other all over the world. We've got some members from Australia. We've got members from Scotland, Ireland. All right. We've got members from UK, Austria, Canada, all over the US. And they talk to each other and they communicate with each other on the Circle Community. And so, yeah, it's a lot of interaction. You can work at your own pace and you can print the stuff off or do it all online. And everything that we add to the course, you will continue to get with no extra charge. So people who bought it when we first came out with it 2 years ago are going to get all the upgrades that we're putting into it now with no extra cost. So we're constantly recording more videos on different types of training. So we show you simple stuff, even like how to change a flat tire on your car, because a lot of people don't even know how to do that. Yeah. And then we also show you how to store water if you have a crisis and you need an extra week of water, or how to filter water. We talk about little things like little emergency lanterns, power stations, a little power charging bank like this, to the larger ones that you can use solar on and run, your refrigerator and your freezer on. So we really want people to be prepared. And then we talk about deepening your prayer life, things like sacramentals, holy water, blessed salt. We talk about those things as well. So it's a real good mix. And you're right, Charbel, there's really nothing in the Catholic community that's doing anything like this. And we really need it, because we're very unwise to not pay attention to the natural part of who we are. If we're just going to pray for each other, but not feed and strengthen and protect and defend and heal when you're sick, if we don't do those things, then we fall very, very short of what our role is as a Christian.
Amen. I mean, it is very much in tune with our corporal and spiritual works of mercy. We've
Absolutely.
got to be ready for that.
Yeah.
No, God bless you. That's fantastic. So it's basically that you go on that website, brcoalition.com, and you'll be able to, it's one course at the moment, and you'll be adding more over time.
Yeah, if you buy the course, you get again the four plus hours of video in the workbooks, and then we're constantly, as we record new pieces, adding to that. When we started it off, it was maybe 2.5, 3 hours. I forget what it was, and we keep adding like a 10-minute segment here on how to secure your house, or we did a segment on medical. If something happens medically, maybe you've got a laceration, a serious wound from chopping wood to a bullet, someone shoots you, or a dog attacks you, whatever it might be, and you can't get to an emergency room for some reason, whatever it might be, natural disaster, whatever. How can you address those things there at home? You're not a doctor, you're not a nurse, you need to do something. So we talk about putting on a tourniquet, how to put on the right kind of bandage. And we have a trained nurse who does all of those pieces for us. So we have the right people who do the right thing. So if you go out there right now and buy it, you would have all of that and then any other pieces that we add. And we're shooting more as we speak. In fact, we've been in the process of adding to this. And we have the latest version. We're calling it BREP 2.0 coming out on the 25th of April. I should add this as well, Charbel, that the online monthly training course, we only open the doors to take new members twice a year. And I think the next time we're opening is in May. And we really want the membership to grow because the times in our world are really showing us that we really should be thinking about being stronger as Christians to handle the persecution, being stronger mentally and emotionally to handle the challenges, but also on a natural level, like you mentioned, the corporal works of mercy. Our salvation depends on that. When you look at Matthew chapter 25, the Son of Man comes in the glory of all the angels, sits on his throne, all the nations are assembled, we're all going to be there together, and he separates the sheep from the goats. In this short version, goats are going to hell, sheep are going to heaven, and specifically because we saw Jesus in others, or we didn't, and we fed, clothed, cared for, sheltered. That's in the gospel. And so the idea that we don't need to think about those things is really tragic. I would look at it this way too. You have a wife and children, correct?
Absolutely. 8 children.
And I have a wife, 5 kids. They've moved out, but I have multiple grandchildren now. If your wife and kids ever, for some reason, ended up in my care and you couldn't be there for whatever reason, you would want to know, and you would feel much better knowing that I was a man that, number one, was a spiritual, godly man trying to love God and be faithful to God. But number two, would physically care for them if they needed food, water, and protection. What kind of a friend would I be, or a fellow Catholic, fellow Christian of any denomination, if I said to you, I'm going to pray for your family, but if someone tries to harm them, I don't know what to do. If they're hungry, I don't know how to feed them. I don't have any food to give them. Well, that doesn't make you feel really well, and it doesn't do a lot of good. But if you know that I'm the type of man that will pray for them, I'll get them spiritual aid, I'll get them a priest, I'll make sure they get the sacraments, I'll fight for them, I'll protect them, I'll feed them. If there's a medical problem, we have ways to take care of that. You feel much better knowing that a fellow brother Catholic Christian is going to help with that. And I would be the same with you. And I think if we as Catholics in general, Christians of all denominations, can look at it that way and realize that it's not just about ourselves. It's about, I want to be prepared to help anybody that God may entrust to my care, even if it's your family. And so brcoalition.com is a website that addresses those things. We also have a free opt-in. If someone wants to go out there and just get we call it a download, you can get a free download. It's a preparedness guide that gives you basic starting points. And you can just go in, we're going to ask for your email, and then we'll put you on a list, and we won't hassle you, but you'll get this free download, and it's a good introduction that's free and gets people started. And then if they want to really take it to another level, then they can buy the course or join the online membership.
So good, so good. Just in these last moments we've got together, I wanted just to, as you're talking, and I'm thinking, why are we talking about this side of things? It's because we need it today. In 2023, here we are, where technology, everything's happening for us. Supermarkets and the internet. We rely so much on things, robots now, electronics, to the point where smartphones, these things, I don't know, they can be a blessing and a curse as well. But the idea of us relying on things has made us, I guess, so dependent on other people that, we don't even know how to do the basics anymore. And why is that important with faith-wise? So I guess we're so far removed from, that natural way God has created things, from basic food and hygiene and water and looking after ourselves, putting shelter. How did we get here? The technology was supposed to make things better, but we're realizing there is a side effect, or there is sort of an outcome as well. Life has become easier on one part, but it's become a lot harder in many other areas.
Right.
And it becomes harder and harder to live the faith. So it's great that you're teaching people to get back to basics here. How do we get so far down the road? How do we get here?
The one word that really jumps out at me with everything you just said is the word discipline. And discipline is an act of the will. Yeah. And for a person to be disciplined or undisciplined is going to determine whether or not our technology dominates us or we dominate it. I want to control the technology. I don't want it to control me.
Yes.
If my technology, my surroundings, and my comforts, and look, I love the comforts too. The great things that God has given man, whether it's medical technology that helps us to the speed of how we can communicate, like right now, what we're doing here. You're in Australia, right. I'm in Texas, and we're doing a podcast. That's amazing. All right. I love what EWTN was able to do when they started putting satellites or bouncing signals off of satellites back in 1981. It was using technology to get the gospel out. So technology, advancements, comforts, they can all be fine. Air conditioning is great. I love to check that thermostat when it's 115 degrees in Texas and know that I'm going to be able to sleep without, laying in a puddle of sweat all night. Yeah. That's a great thing. But if my discipline is not in place, if my free will decides to let that comfort and that convenience take me over, then I let things like the technology consume me. Now I'm a slave to it rather than it being a tool for me to use appropriately. People do this with food. We have the all-you-can-eat food buffets. We have easy access food anywhere, everywhere. And now we have health problems because we're eating bad food or we're eating too much. So you got a lot of obesity. You got a lot of health issues, even among teenagers. This is more of a problem now than it's ever been because our food has become so accessible. Even though there's a lot of starvation in the world, a lot of developed countries can have food coming out their ears. But if they don't discipline what they put in their mouth and how much of the food they're eating, and they don't exercise or get active, then they're going to find themselves in a problem. So I think the number one thing is we become very soft with the access to all this technology and convenience, which has a good place in many respects. We become soft. We've let it take us over because our free will has not embraced discipline, spiritual discipline and natural discipline. So we are the ones, and God gives us that, the freedom to make the choices, whether we're going to be mastering our passions, mastering our technology, or it's going to master us. Now, I'll bring you real quick on this point, if you don't mind. AI, artificial intelligence. Yeah, they're already, Elon Musk and 1,000, I think it's close to 1,000 other innovators and AI experts are calling for a 6-month moratorium on any development of AI. One individual, Yurdowski, I think is his last name, I'm going to get that wrong, says, and he's been in this for 20 plus years, he says it should be an indefinite moratorium because AI is so powerful and what it can be used for, especially in the hands of the wrong people with no proper boundaries and people really not having the discipline to use it the right way is another part of the problem,
Yes.
can become so destructive that it could destroy our civilization. And you're seeing reports come out. I saw another one come out on the news today. The concern that it becomes like a Terminator movie where the AI starts to fall into the Darwinism idea that only the strong survive and humans are not going to be as smart or as quick as AI. So what could AI and certain people with AI do to hurt those who can't keep up with it? So that even speaks to the idea of discipline and free will using technology the right way. But when we drift from God, we lose discipline, we lose a perspective that's correct and holy, and everything can be abused, whether it's a television to AI. Everything can be abused if we drift from God and discipline is not in place. And we're we're seeing it all around us now.
Yeah, as on one hand, as exciting, people might be excited they might be about AI. It's also very scary. Again, in the wrong hands, this could be destructive. So we've got to
Can
be
you
careful.
imagine? I mean, Charbel, can you imagine AI in the hands of Stalin or Hitler?
Oh,
I mean,
right.
they would have used it to. I mean, Stalin starved between 30 and 60 million of his own people, estimated. In fact, they don't know for sure, they say, because some of the statisticians that came to him and told him how many were dying, once they told him the number, he had the statisticians killed in some cases because he didn't want the information to get out. A man that is that tyrannical. And then Hitler, of course, with what he did with the Jews and anybody else, many Christians, Catholics, priests, nuns, anybody who disagreed with him. People are not thinking right, Charbel, if they don't think that people like that are alive today.
Yeah.
That evil presence can go through the heart of any one of us if we let it. There are men and women in this world that would have no problem with the degree of persecutions that we saw during the regime of the Nazis or Stalin or any of those type of leaders. If they had the ability to do it, there are people that would do it. I just believe that because those evil spirits that infiltrated the hearts of people like Stalin and Hitler, those evil spirits are still around. They're spirits. They're never going to go away. But we have to be wiser and we have to be holier. We've got to turn to God. And therein lies the big part of the problem, is that many people just don't want to do that.
This is what's happening today, isn't it? We've turned our back on God, and we can blame ourselves now for being in this mess, because if God's not in charge, if we don't let Him be in charge, then we're left to our own devices, and here's what's happened. Can we now just in these final minutes talk about, I guess, spiritually being prepared? What are some of the tips you could give us today, just on a spiritual front? How can we fight this spiritual battle? What sort of things? What are some takeaways just for today's discussion here of people? What can they do practically right now with those with spiritual weapons?
One of the first things that comes to my mind is just the Blessed Mother. She's here over my shoulder, and she gave us a tremendous weapon, the Rosary, in the form that we have it now. When she went through Saint Dominic, I mean, it has reference back to the 150 Psalms and so forth. But when she came to Saint Dominic and she said, do you want to know what is going to be like a battering ram? She uses the term battering ram. She says, it's my angelic psalter. She's talking about the Rosary. So the Rosary, pray that Rosary. I say to people, don't let a day go by. In fact, on my YouTube channel, Doug Barry YouTube channel, I recorded all four rosaries, all four sets of mysteries. They're about 19 minutes long. We put some beautiful music behind it. And I'm not on there. It's just my voice. And then my son did some great editing on it with some beautiful scenery and nature and such, and some beautiful religious images. And just find a way to pray the Rosary, though. Just pray that Rosary every day. Do it in the car as you're driving. Do it at home. Do it at church. But pray that Rosary every single day. Also, get some fasting in there. I try to do some fasting, usually 5 or 6 days a week, even if it's a little something. Skip a meal, eat one meal today, eat your meal 30 minutes later than you were going to, eat half of what you were going to eat. In other words, physically engage in the spiritual battle by disciplining your body, especially in the area of food. That normally can overflow into a discipline in many other areas of your life, because food is such an innate and basic thing that we all need and want. And if we can control that, then oftentimes we can control many other areas of our life. So prayer, fasting, get to the sacraments, Mass, obviously, faithfully, as the church calls us to, but also sacrament of confession, reconciliation. Get there regularly, frequently, not just once every 6 months. Try to go once a month or every couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. Also, I would say this on a natural, and use sacramentals, like I've got holy water and blessed salt here on my desk. I've got the scapular on. I've got, the rosary in my pocket. Make sure that sacramentals are part of your life. But then on a natural level, your atmosphere, and we talk about this in our BR Coalition monthly training, mm-hmm. there are certain variables that we have large control over. And I can control what I'm watching, what I'm listening to, certain people I hang out with, certain conversations, and I can decide whether or not I'm going to engage in those things that are helpful to my soul or hurtful. We have to make those choices with discipline to create an environment that is conducive to growth spiritually and strength spiritually. And so on a natural and spiritual level, make those decisions: prayer, sacraments, sacramentals, fasting, your environment. Talk positively to yourself. And I'm not talking about just I believe in myself, not that. But don't bust on yourself. God doesn't put you down. Don't put yourself down. Mm. When you sin and make mistakes, hey, I'm a child of God. I made a mistake. I got to get up and I got to do what Jesus says. I need to persevere. I need to move the right direction. It's the enemy that tries to get into our head to say, you're worthless. You can't do this. You're too weak. You'll never overcome this. That's not from God. Don't let the enemy have his way in those areas. And then the last thing I would say is make sure you're surrounding yourself with good people that are going to lift you up and build you up. Podcasts like what you're doing and what we're trying to do with BR Coalition, or the U.S. Grace Force podcast that I do with Father Richard Heilman. You've got to surround yourselves with good materials and good people that are going to be on your side on that battlefield. We're in this for the long haul, and we've got to understand that this battle is real and God's mercy is unbelievable and beyond our comprehension, but we have a part to play in this because he gives us free will. And I also just tell people, do not be discouraged, no matter how rough things get, or how dark things get in this world or in your own personal life. Do not be discouraged, because God's, I don't want to say God's got this. I don't like that term, because he gives us free will to choose whether or not we're going to participate and cooperate the right way. But God's strength is available for everybody who calls on it. And our Blessed Mother is so faithful in being there for us.
Very well said. I love those tips. I hope people go back and listen to this over and over, write them down, because I think we need to be doing that and making that part of our life. Discipline's a great start. We were so undisciplined today. And then those spiritual weapons, praise God. Well, God bless you. I want to thank you, Doug, for joining us today. It's been great to connect again, and I hope we can do this again down the track, and maybe we can start talking about specific topics and things like that. That would be phenomenal. Sure. But we're praying for you, BR Coalition. Again, that website, is it just one word, brcoalition.com?
brcoalition.com, brcoalition.com. Yep. People check it out. Get your free opt-in. By just getting that free download, you opt in, get the free download. And I want to encourage people, even if you don't buy our course and you don't sign up to be our online membership, I hope you do. I hope you try it. We offer money back guarantees on this stuff. We really want people to do it if they feel it's a good fit. But even if you don't, please, everybody who's listening or watching, do something to be better prepared spiritually, naturally. Make sure you're taking those steps, because it's not just about you. There are people who are counting on you, just like your wife and kids and my family. They're counting on us to be the type of people that take these things seriously. So I encourage everybody, do something, take the right steps to be better prepared in these ways. Great
work. And you are saying, as a final thought here, there is hope, right? As far-fetched the world looks like it's at its darkest time, we think it couldn't get any worse. But you're saying if we do these things, there is hope, right? You can give us today this hope.
Charbel, you think about someone like it could be an extreme case like St. Lawrence, who's being roasted over a fire in the early centuries of the church. And his sense of humor, You can turn me over. I'm done on this side. He said to the guard, it was being cooked over like a barbecue pit. And he told the guard, you can turn me over. I'm done on this side. The hope is that the Holy Spirit, when we let him in, will do amazing things. Now, even in the middle of war, God does amazing things to make clear that he is God. And so whether we're going through grave suffering, like Maximilian Kolbe in the concentration camps in Germany, or St. Lawrence in the early centuries of the church, or whether it's just day-to-day struggle and persecution because your family has left the faith. And I know people watching, listening right now might know you've got family members, whether it's a spouse or kids, they're abandoned the faith. They're struggling with transgender, LGBTQ. They're struggling with things like this. Do not lose hope. It will be hard at times. That's where we cling to the cross, keep our eyes on Jesus, and make sure that we cling to the Blessed Mother. And the promises of the Rosary, 15 key promises of the Rosary, they're amazing. People got to look them up and read them and trust, trust, trust. Yes, there is hope. Even in difficult times, there's hope. And this is what really proves the beauty of Christianity, is that in the darkest times, Christians are built to trust in God's greatness and God's resurrection from the grave and what he has done. I mean, this is one little known thing I think we forget. When Jesus rose from the grave, what happened? No, I'm sorry, when he died, forgive me, on Good Friday when he died, tombs opened up and the saints came out of the ground.
That's right, yes.
We forget that in Scripture.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic piece of that passage, is that the dead came out of the ground and started to preach. Unbelievable things that God can do. So yes, there is definitely hope. Even when it's really tough, there's hope, yeah.
Very well said. Thank you very much. Well, thanks for joining us today. Praying for
Awesome
you and be our coalition.
Really is.
Thank you, so God bless you. And I want to thank everyone for watching today. I hope you've gotten a lot out of that episode. That's another Perusia podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our website, perusiamedia.com, has all of the podcasts and also on all popular audio podcast platforms. You can go and download and share this. Subscribe to any one of your favorite platforms. You'll get all this and more. So thanks again. Please pray for our work. And I hope you get the message today. We've got to be ready. Let's be ready. God bless you.